Most people will never be wealthy. Not because they lack talent, not because they were born into the wrong family, and not because the economy is rigged against them. Most people will never be wealthy because they are making purchasing decisions today based on a world that no longer exists. They are buying things that made sense 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. But the world has quietly shifted underneath their feet, and they have not noticed yet. When the shift becomes obvious, it will already be too late for most of them. Let me tell you something about wealth that almost nobody talks about honestly. Wealth is not primarily built, it is transferred. At certain points in history, money moves in massive, quiet waves from one group of people to another. Not through robbery, not through fraud, through positioning, through preparation, through understanding which direction the current is flowing before most people even feel the water moving. We are living in one of those moments right now. Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors in the history of modern finance, the man who built Bridgewater Associates into the largest hedge fund on earth, has spent decades studying these cycles. He calls them debt cycles, and he has identified a pattern that repeats across hundreds of years of economic history. When you understand the pattern, you stop being surprised by economic events. You start anticipating them. And when you start anticipating them, you stop being a victim of them. What I want to do today is translate that framework into something practical for ordinary Americans. Not Wall Street language, not academic theory. Real, actionable thinking that you can apply to your finances starting this week. Specifically, I want to talk about 5 categories of things that millions of Americans are buying right now that are quietly bleeding their financial futures dry, and why the next 2 to 3 years represent a critical window to change course before a significant wealth transfer event reshapes who has money and who does not. Now, before I get into the 5 things, I need to give you the foundation. Because without the foundation, the advice sounds like noise. With the foundation, it sounds like the most obvious thing in the world. Here is the core idea, stated as simply as I can state it. Every economy at every point in history runs on debt. Debt is not inherently evil. Debt is a tool. When used wisely, debt creates growth, builds businesses, funds innovation. But debt has a biological quality to it. Like a living thing, it feeds and grows. And eventually, every debt cycle reaches a point where the accumulated weight of debt becomes too heavy for the underlying economy to carry. At that point, one of 2 things happens. Either the debt is restructured gradually, slowly, with managed pain distributed across the population, or it breaks suddenly, causing what Dalio calls a deleveraging, a massive, rapid destruction of financial value. We are not at the beginning of this cycle, we are deep into it. U.S. total debt across government, corporate, and household sectors sits at levels that historically precede major corrections. Interest rates, after being held near zero for over a decade, were forced dramatically higher. And now millions of American households are caught in a slow squeeze, paying more to service debt on assets that are, in many categories, starting to decline in real value. That is the setup. Now let me make it personal. Imagine you are standing at a riverbank. For 15 years, the river flowed in one direction. Everyone built their boats to travel that direction. Everyone learned the currents, the eddies, the safe passages. Then the river shifted, gradually at first, almost imperceptibly. But if you were paying attention to the water level, the color of the sediment, the way certain fish were disappearing, you could sense the change. Most people are still steering their old boats in the old direction, and they are going to hit the rocks. The 5 things I am about to describe are not random. Each one represents a category where American consumer behavior, driven by habit, social pressure, and outdated financial assumptions, is leading people directly toward those rocks. And I want to help you steer around them. But here is the most important thing I want you to hold in your mind as we go through this together. This is not a message of fear. Fear paralyzes. This is a message of preparation. The same wealth transfer that will devastate people who are not paying attention will create extraordinary opportunity for the people who are. Dalio himself has said it plainly. He did not build his fortune by being pessimistic. He built it by being clear-eyed about reality and positioning accordingly. That is exactly what we are going to do today. So stay with me, because what comes next may be the most important financial conversation you have this year. Let us start with the first thing, and I want you to brace yourself a little, because this one is going to push back on something that your parents probably told you was the cornerstone of the American dream. Stop buying a house as if it is automatically an investment. Now, before you close this video, hear me out. I am not saying never buy a house. I am saying stop buying a house on the assumption that it will make you wealthy the way it made the previous generation wealthy. Because the conditions that made residential real estate the wealth building engine of the 1980s, 1990s, and even the 2000s no longer exist in the same form. Here is the reality. A home is a place to live. For millions of Americans, it is also a source of stability, community, and belonging, things that have real value. But as a pure financial instrument, a primary residence is largely a liability with upside optionality. You pay property taxes every year. You pay maintenance, typically 1 to 2% of the home value annually. You pay insurance. You pay interest on a mortgage that, in the early years, means nearly every dollar of your payment goes to the bank rather than building your equity. And in today's environment, with home prices in many markets still dramatically elevated relative to incomes and rent ratios, and with a mortgage rate environment that has made monthly payments genuinely painful, the math has shifted. Let me give you a concrete number to hold on to. In 2020, the median monthly payment on a median-priced American home was roughly $1,100. Today, with prices and rates both elevated, that same purchase costs closer to $2,300 per month. That extra $1,200 per month is $14,400 per year. That is not going into retirement accounts, not going into index funds, not building liquid wealth that you can actually deploy when opportunity appears. The financially intelligent question to ask in this environment is not whether you can afford the mortgage. The question is, what else could you do with that capital? Because the opportunity cost of a stretched home purchase right now is enormous. Dalio talks about a concept he calls the beautiful deleveraging. In a beautiful deleveraging, you want to hold assets that benefit from reflation and avoid assets that are leveraged to debt that cannot be sustained. An overpriced primary residence financed with a large mortgage in a high-rate environment is one of the clearest examples of the latter. This does not mean renting forever. It means being strategic. It means running the actual numbers in your specific market. It means resisting the social pressure that says buying a home at any price is automatically smarter than renting. For some people in some markets, the math still works. But for millions of Americans making this decision right now, the data says they are buying something that will underperform for the next several years. Now, the second thing, and this one is perhaps the most culturally invisible because it is deeply woven into how Americans have been taught to think about value and identity. Stop buying new vehicles on financing. The American auto industry has performed one of the most brilliant psychological feats in the history of consumer commerce. They have successfully trained us to think of a monthly payment as the price of a car, not the total cost, not the depreciation schedule, not the insurance differential, just the monthly number. And when they needed to keep that monthly number manageable as prices rose, they simply extended the loan terms. 5 years became 6, 6 became 7, 7 became in many cases today 8. Here is what that actually means financially. The average new vehicle in the United States now costs over $8,000. The average car loan carries an interest rate of roughly 7 to 8%. Financed over 72 months, you are paying somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000 in interest alone on an asset that will be worth perhaps 50% of its purchase price by the time you pay it off. You are financing a depreciating asset at a premium rate, and the asset is losing value faster than you are building equity in it. There is a term in finance called a melting ice cube. It refers to an asset that is deteriorating in value faster than you can extract benefit from it. A new vehicle financed over 6 or 7 years in today's interest rate environment is one of the clearest melting ice cubes in the average American household balance sheet. The alternative is not glamorous. It is not the kind of thing that gets likes on social media, but it is the kind of thing that quietly changes your financial trajectory. You buy a 2 or 3-year-old vehicle with cash or a very short loan. You drive it for 8 to 10 years. You take the difference in monthly cost and you put it somewhere that actually grows. The math on this, compounded over 20 years, is not modest. It is the difference between a comfortable retirement and a stressful one. Wealth is built in the gaps between what you earn and what you spend. Every dollar that closes that gap unnecessarily is a dollar that will never have the chance to compound in your favor. We are halfway through the 5, and I want to pause here for a moment, because I notice that whenever I lay out information like this, some people get defensive. They think I am judging their choices. I want to be very clear about something. I am not here to judge how you have been spending your money. Most of these patterns are not individual failures. They are the natural result of living in a consumer economy that is brilliantly engineered to extract money from your pocket and put it into someone else's. The game is designed. Your job is to understand the design and play accordingly. Thing number 3. Stop buying subscription services you do not actively use and track. This one sounds small, and individually it is small, but at a societal scale, this is one of the most successful wealth transfers from ordinary consumers to technology corporations in economic history. The subscription economy has been built on a single psychological insight. Humans are bad at perceiving recurring small losses. We feel a $50 purchase. We barely register a $12.99 monthly charge. So the technology industry built an entire economic model around charging us $12.99 and $14.99 and $9.99 and $6.99 over and over and over again for things we use once or twice and forgot about. A survey from a couple of years ago found that the average American household underestimates its subscription spending by over 100%. They think they spend about $80 a month. The actual average is closer to $220. That is $140 per month in spending that people are not even consciously aware of. Over a year, that is $1,600. Over a decade, and here is where it gets interesting, if that $1,600 annually were invested instead at a modest 7% return, it becomes more than $22,000. This is not a philosophical argument about minimalism. This is pure arithmetic. The subscription economy is a leak in your financial foundation, and most people have no idea how many leaks they have. The fix here is simple but requires discipline. Once a quarter, pull up your bank statement and your credit card statement and go line by line through every recurring charge. Ask yourself a single question about each one. Would I actively choose to buy this today at this price? Not would I miss it if it were gone. Would I actively buy it today? If the answer is no, cancel it. Some of these services will offer you a discount to stay. Take it or do not, but do the audit. Every single quarter. Thing number 4. Stop buying the latest consumer electronics on credit. I want to tell you a story about two neighbors. Both of them make roughly the same income. Both of them have roughly the same family situation. Every 2 years, one of them upgrades to the latest smartphone, the latest laptop, the latest tablet. He finances all of it. The monthly payments are small. He barely notices them. The other neighbor keeps her devices for 4 to 5 years. Her phone is 2 generations old. Her laptop is a little slower than she would like. But she takes the $150 a month she is saving and she buys index funds. 20 years later, the first neighbor has had 10 generations of smartphones and can show you every major product launch from the past 2 decades. The second neighbor has a brokerage account worth over $90,000 conservatively. The gap between them is not income. It is not intelligence. It is the decision about what to do with the space between the latest thing and the good enough thing. There is a concept in behavioral economics called hedonic adaptation. It means that no matter how exciting a new purchase feels, you adapt to it and it becomes your new normal, and then you want the next thing. The technology industry does not just understand this. They plan their entire product cycle around it. The excitement you feel unwrapping a new phone is real, but it has a shelf life of about 3 weeks. The financial drag of paying for it has a shelf life of 24 months. And the fifth thing, this is the most important one, save it, because it is the most counterintuitive, and it is the one most directly connected to the wealth transfer that is coming. Stop buying financial products and assets you do not understand because someone told you they would make you rich quickly. Every time there is a period of financial stress and uncertainty, a particular type of financial predator emerges. They are not always obviously predatory. Sometimes they genuinely believe in what they are selling. But the pattern is always the same. Complex product, exciting story, social proof, urgency, whether it was subprime mortgage, backed securities in 2006, certain cryptocurrency schemes in 2021 and 2022, or the wave of high-fee annuity products being aggressively marketed to middle-class Americans right now, the mechanism is consistent. Someone who understands the product better than you do is selling it to you because the asymmetry of knowledge works in their favor. Dalio has a rule that has guided his investing philosophy for decades. He does not make a major investment until he can explain clearly why it will go up and clearly why it might go wrong. Both sides, not just the optimistic story, the full picture. If you cannot articulate both, you do not understand the investment well enough to own it. The wealth transfer that is coming is not going to come from some exotic new asset class that only insiders know about. It is going to come from the same place it always comes from in history. The patient, the disciplined, and the well-positioned are going to acquire assets from the panicked and the over-leveraged at favorable prices. It happens in every cycle. It will happen in this one. Your job is not to predict the exact timing. Your job is to be the person with dry powder when the prices become attractive. Your job is to stop the leaks, clear the liabilities, build the reserve, and wait for the pitch you can actually hit. let me bring this home with something that I think is the thread that runs through everything we have talked about today. The common denominator in all five of these behaviors, buying too much house, financing depreciating vehicles, leaking money through subscriptions, chasing the latest gadgets on credit, buying products you do not understand, is the same thing. They all represent choosing present consumption over future optionality. Optionality is the ability to act. It is the freedom to say yes to the right opportunity when it appears. It is what separates the person who builds wealth from the person who earns a good income their entire life and arrives at retirement wondering where it all went. Every dollar you recover from these five categories is a dollar you can deploy with intention. A dollar that can buy you time. A dollar that can buy you flexibility. A dollar that, placed in the right investment over the right time horizon, can multiply into something genuinely meaningful. You do not need to be Ray Dalio to benefit from thinking like Ray Dalio. You do not need to manage billions. You need to manage your own financial life with the same clarity, the same patience, and the same commitment to understanding the forces that are actually shaping the economy around you. The wealth transfer is coming. The question is only which side of it you are on. Start with one thing on this list. Not all five, not tomorrow, but one. This week, do the subscription audit, or run the honest math on a vehicle decision, or spend 30 minutes actually reading about an investment you currently own or are thinking about. One step, taken deliberately, changes the trajectory, because the most expensive thing in personal finance is not a bad investment. It is inertia. It is the months and years that pass while you mean to get around to it. Compounding works for your money, but it also works against your delay. Start now. Start with clarity, and start with the understanding that you are not trying to get rich. You are trying to get free. Because financial freedom, the real kind, the kind where you can choose how you spend your time and your energy, is not about having more than everyone else. It is about having enough that your life is yours to direct. That is the real wealth, and it is available to anyone willing to think carefully and act deliberately. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on any of these principles, the resources are in the description below.